This video will cover the cosmetic restoration of my Rock-afire show. Unfortunately, though my show was fairly mechanically complete, it did not come with any of the character cosmetics. While visiting Creative Engineering in March of 2020, I was able to collect some of the cosmetics I would need. However, most of it would have to be made from scratch. Over the course of 3 years, Robbie and Leighton helped sew all the pieces I would need. They also laid up most of the latex pieces I needed. Determining how to paint the latex pieces, including masks, hands, and feet, as well as finding the original paint colors, was an extremely difficult project. For the purposes of this video, I will not share how any latex pieces were painted, as the paint methods are proprietary and were used by Creative Engineering during production in 1983. Let's start with the cosmetic restoration of Rolph. These are Rolph's feet and hands. These took about 4 hours to paint, and they were painted on August 4th of 2022. They also took about 3 hours to fur, and I didn't fur them until September 23rd. Rolph's mask was painted on May 16th of 2022, and this mask took about 4 hours to paint. Rolph's mask was not furred until more than a year later on June 28th of 2023, and this took 2 hours. Robbie had to sew Rolph's feet, leg, hand, and head fur, and he also sewed his black undershirt. Rolph's vest is original, but brand new. On September 19, 2021, Earl's mask was painted and took about 2 hours. On September 25th, I painted his hands and feet, and I'm not sure how long that took. I furred him in 2 hours on September 25th of 2021, and here's a picture of him on September 26th. Earl's head fur, shirt, pants, and hat were original, but brand new. Robbie had to sew his body, arm, and leg fur, as well as his tongue. Now let's move on to Duke. Unfortunately, due to the cost of fur production, I was not able to have Duke fur produced. Luckily, Aaron still has a supply of it. However, I did have a 1981 original Duke head fur, the last of its kind, which used a tan fur. I was able to send a small sample of this to be replicated, and the company made me 2 yards, which was enough for 2 head furs. I decided I wanted to make my show a bit unique and use this fur for my Duke head fur. Robbie sewed this for me. With the latex pieces, Duke's hat was painted on September 3rd of 2021 and took 2 hours to paint. His mask was painted on June 11th, 2023 and took 4 hours to paint. The mask was furred on June 20th and took an hour. Finally, his shoes were painted on June 23rd and took 2 hours to paint. Duke's silver pants and shirt were original but brand new. His vinyl suit had to be sewn by Robbie, as well as his silver sleeves. Janet from Alexander's Blind and Drapery sewed his gloves. Fatz was the first character to be finished on August 5th of 2022. I chose to use his 1982 mask version as I think it has a softer appearance and is more expressive. This was another thing I did to set my show apart. Fatz's hands and feet were painted on August 19th of 2021 and took 2 hours. That same day they were furred, and that took 4 hours. Fatz's mask took 1 hour to paint on October 1st of 2021. It took 7 hours to fur on March 30th of 2022. Fatz's leg fur was original but new. His hand and head fur had to be sewn by Robbie using my newly produced fur. Fatz's jacket was brand new but original. It was Aaron's last new Fatz jacket. With Beach Bear, I wanted to do something unique. From 1980 to 1981, Beach Bear had gray fur, and after that, all of them were white. So I decided that since I had Rolph fur produced, I could make him gray just like the original shows. His hands and feet were painted on June 12th of 2022, and that took 2 hours. On June 14th, those hands and feet were furred, and that took 3 hours. His slide hand was not finished until March 29th of 2023. His mask was furred and painted on June 11th of 2023 and took 8 hours in total. Beach Bear's guitar was in really rough shape when I first got him. I had to have it re-glossed as well as paint and get all new individual pieces like the knobs. Robbie had to sew every single piece on Beach Bear with the exception of his shorts. The shorts were original and lightly used. Mitzi was one of my favorite characters to restore. Her shoes were painted on September 14th of 2021 and took 4 hours. The hands took 3 hours to paint on March 24th of 2022. On March 26th of 2022, the hands were furred and it took 2 hours. The ears were painted in 1 hour on June 12th of 2022. They were furred on June 13th. On June 11th of 2023, her mask was painted. This was the hardest mask to paint. It took over 5 hours, but in the end, I'm really satisfied with how it turned out. It's probably my favorite mask I've ever done. It took 2 hours to fur this mask on June 11th. Robbie had to sew Mitzi's leg, hands, head, and ear fur. Her skirt and dickie were original, but brand new. Her shirt had to be sewn by a friend of mine and was brand new. Let's move on to Billy Bob. Billy Bob's feet were painted in September of 2021 and took an hour. Furring them also took an hour. His strum hand was painted at the same time as Beach Bear's on August 19th, 2021. It was furred on September 9th and took 2 hours. The slide hand was painted on September 14th and furred on September 15th. This whole process took about 2 hours. Birthday Bird took 3 hours to paint on June 12th of 2022. He was furred on June 14th and that took 2 hours. Like Beach Bear's guitar, Billy Bob's guitar was not in great shape. I sent it to Robbie to be repainted. I later painted and attached Billy Bob's tuning bones. Billy Bob's mask was the last mask to be painted on my show, and it was painted on June 27, 2023, and took 2 hours. It was furred the next day, and that also took 2 hours. Robbie had to sew Billy Bob's feet, right forearm, strum hand, and head fur. His body, leg, and slide hand fur were original but new. Robbie also sewed all of Birthday Bird's fur and the overalls. The last full character is Looney Bird. His mask took 4 hours to paint on November 11th of 2021. It was furred and feathered on June 29th of 2023 and took 2 hours. Robbie sewed Looney Bird's head fur using the original fur. Finally, I'll move on to the props. Choo Choo's mask took 1 hour to paint on June 29th of 2023 and 1 hour to fur on that same day. He reused his original head fur that actually came with the show. The sun was huge and very difficult to paint. It took 6 hours to paint on May 1st of 2023. Lastly, the moon was painted on July 22nd of 2022 and took 5 hours. This part of the project was very time-consuming, and I wanted to be meticulous with the painting and furring work. The cosmetics were the synthesis of multiple other parts of the restoration, like having the fur produced in the new molds. This was the best part of the project to me. Seeing the characters go from bare frames to fully restored animatronics was astounding and satisfying. I am extremely happy with how everything turned out, and I want to thank Aaron Fector for allowing Robbie and Leighton to use the original patterns to sew brand new cosmetics for me. Robbie and Leighton put a lot of work into sewing these cosmetics, and I think the work they did was phenomenal.